Today, we are joined by someone whose career has taken her across different organizations, countries, and cultures, giving her a unique perspective on governance and leadership. Inderpreet, it's such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you, Kako. It's really my pleasure to be on this podcast today and share my journey, if it can be of help to anyone.
I'm sure it would be, yes. So before we get into today's topic, would love for our listeners to know a little bit better about yourself, Indy, outside of governance and the boardroom and all of that. Who is Indy?
I mean, if you take governance away, there's really, you kind of start thinking about what am I really doing in this world? But yeah, I mean, that's that's part of the identity that now I am very much related to. So currently I'm head of governance and secretariat at Barnet Waddingham, which is part of Howden. But yes, apart from governance, I do have I would put myself as a very family-oriented but outgoing person as well. I have a little daughter, 3.5 years. I have another one on the way, and I've got really big family. I would say a big fat Indian family with in-laws based in North India and my own family in Calcutta in East India. So very much, very. I don't want to use the term devoted here, but then yes, very culturally oriented, a very faithful person. I do believe in faith as well. So that's some of the other elements of my personality apart from governance here. As I told you, it doesn't leave much if you take governance away.
I think it does leave a lot, Indy. Honestly, being family orientated, but also celebrating your culture all the time. I think that is a lot. That shows that you're very multifaceted, if I do say so myself.
Hope so, yeah.
Yeah. And now going back to the governance side and putting the governance hat on, Indy, you've built a career that has crossed borders. I'm guessing when you first started out, you probably weren't setting out with a map thinking, I'll start in this country, then I'll hop over to that country and do that and all of that. But now, as you're sat here, when you think back at the beginning, what did you imagine your career would look like?
Oh my God, I mean, a young myself, imagining myself back again, in that time, I was sort of in my college doing Bachelor's of Commerce, to do something more in finance and accounting, and started with one of the big banks, which are today. And I come from a tier 2 city, Calcutta, in India, a small city, but again, a very culturally rich city, I would say. Started my career as a fund accountant, really getting into the smaller decimal issues of numbers, where are the breaks? Can you just do the reconciliation, etc. But then that experience really gave me something very invaluable, those little things can actually cause a lot of trouble when you look at the whole picture. So finding those small breaks in those numbers, getting the reconciliations done properly actually gave me a much, much bigger perspective. But yeah, as I said, I was doing my graduation and then somehow also sitting for the qualifying governance examinations, which used to be like a 3-module examination, but it used to span over 3 years, multiple papers. And somehow numbers didn't fascinate me a lot. And I was kind of that black and white, person that, okay, I would rather go into law or really read about the legal stuff and just not worry about a lot of other colors in life. But then I never knew that black and white had a lot of gray as well. So yeah, I went into the governance profession, full-fledged, and somehow I managed to clear all my examinations in the first attempt, which was sort of kind of motivating for me that maybe this is what I'm meant to. And I think, early on, there was this one skill of networking, which I think I had, and probably there were people who helped me develop that as well. So it was kind of that networking really landed me into my first internship and, getting me at least in the door, in front of the interviewer panel, and sort of a young person coming in with just numbers background, but then also the governance stuff and all that after examinations was really great. And I landed up an internship at a very recognized steel manufacturing organization. pretty much known in that city. And with a massive company secretarial team. And that was the start. And there was just no looking back after that.
Honestly, that is so amazing. I love your profile so much. And I have a question actually. Do you think that starting out in finance made you a good governance professional or a better governance professional?
That's sort of like, very competitive question. Or what should we say? Finance is better or governance? I think, governance is not always, it's not simply about compliance minutes or making sure that the regulations are managed. I think governance is a much, much wider remit. It has a much wider remit, which basically it's about telling the management's version of a story or a narrative, what they're going through, not just in terms of the regulatory stuff, the technical stuff, but also the financial stuff. So I do think that finance, having a perspective on finance, helps you develop some of those key skills. Like, I've seen like in most of the organizations, there's always a competition going on between the finance team and the governance team, like, who is doing a better job or whose report is much more important. It's not about that. It's just about understanding each other's, both the functions are very important. But yes, finance, like, as I mentioned, like, understanding those small breaks and the problems that it could cause in the larger picture, which could be a balance sheet, is really crucial, because at the end, your value is determined in terms of the numbers. That's like, the clear metric which people said that, okay, if you want to look at an organization's performance, look at the numbers first.
Yeah.
Now we are having those conversations that we need to look at the governance and the culture as well. But somehow I think the defined metric has always been numbers. So, which is a valid point as well. It's not that we need to take that away, but it's more about like, understanding the perspective. So I do think, yes, finance did play a good part in developing or making me what I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. And in maintaining the same lens around your motivations, early start, you did drop something quite significant around networking that I just wanted to zoom in on slightly. How you mentioned the importance of networking and potentially playing a role in your early start, your first interviews and so on and so forth. We're talking about governance across borders. How and what role has networking played, in that first move from when you were in India to now where you are, or as soon as you transition, what role has networking played?
Absolutely. I think networking and relationship management both, or relationship creation and then management, both of them play a very important role. For the beginning of my career, or the major part of my career, I was very fortunate that I worked across listed businesses which spanned into infrastructure, manufacturing, and later the renewable energy as well, when I was kind of picked up as to lead the governance and legal department for EDF Energies and Total Airways India business, which was like a very life-changing event, I would say, for me, career-changing event for me. And having that initial access to CEOs, managing directors, regulators, shareholders, boards, just going in front of them, creating that trust-based relationship that, okay, I'm your advisor and this is what I've brought to the table. Firstly, you really need to recognize what you don't know. If you don't know something. And the key skill to networking is going up and asking someone that I don't know about this. Can you help me with this? Because I want to learn. I want to know that person. I want an introduction with that person. Can you help me break that introduction? So I think I really find networking as a very important tool for you to understand where you are and where you want to be. And networking also needs to be in different boxes for you. One has to be a strategic networking, which is specifically meant for your professional safety net. Then you got an intentional networking where you that's basically, what you aspire to be in your personal as well as professional life, to move in that direction. And the third one could just be a very natural networking, which is not meant to be for any business or any focused agenda. It's just networking. you will be surprised to understand how those connections come back to you later in your career or at any different point of your journey. And you'll be very happy to see, like, okay, I never knew that this could land me here. So, and when I talk about networking, some of the real life instances that I've faced have the CGI conferences. I mean, the counterpart to CGI in India was ICSA, the Institute of Chartered Company Secretaries of India. And that has been a huge source of, motivation for me, or like, connections for me. Because as I mentioned, my first internship came through that, like, because I met people at one of the event. And that's how I just landed into a job straight after passing my examinations. It was kind of, we have an opening, give an interview, and if you're selected, you can see. And it was just like, you walk in and you got that opportunity and you cracked it and you made it. And then came, like, from there, the networking was internal, like within my organization. Very early on, I was able to, like, strike a good conversation with the CFOs, like trying understanding like what they are doing in the business. Again, I don't want to say, but I was lucky enough because our company secretary at that point had resigned. So it was kind of like a very junior team who was asked to step up. And, the CEO and MD walking to us and saying that we are in a bit of an issue here because the company secretary has decided to move on. We don't have, somebody coming in right away, but we would like the youngsters to step up and do it. And that was massive, like, and the AGMs in India, like if you look at any of the organizations, listed organizations, they have tens of thousands of shareholders. So, and they attend in person. They still do attend in person. So it's kind of a gala event that you are preparing. And when you're doing that, you are intentionally or unintentionally networking with people across your organization, trying to create that relationship. And those relations, I still have some of those relationships intact. We do speak about, things when they're happening in the professions. They could be accountants, CAs who have done really good in their life. Like, today, like how AI is changing stuff in the UK as well as India. So we have that sharing of perspectives. And then again, like that networking helped me land my, you get to know more people, you get to know opportunities, you get to know what you want in your life or where you want to be, or do you find another team or somebody as a role model with whom you want to work for. So you kind of like, build your personal or career trajectory on those grounds. And then that kept me like, moving from one organization to the other. After, a good period of time when I just thought that, okay, I've learned this one and let's move on. And then came the major life event for me, which was my marriage. I got married to a British citizen. And then after like 8 successful years, I would say in India, like, building my career, building my professional network, as well as my, like, my friends, my colleagues, my family and everyone, you got to just leave everything at the drop of a hat. And I was 30 at that time when I moved to the UK. By 30, you have created those relationships already, right? And you already have some of the most valuable relations that you want to keep with you. And I had to drop everything for the one new relation that I created. So it was kind of like, and then when I moved here in 2019, I was kind of like, my husband was like, for the first few months, why don't you just, travel and figure out, like, you're in a new country, you've got a nice break after 8 years. I never stopped working a single day in those 8 years. And he said, just go around, like, maybe enjoy. London is a beautiful place and UK is a beautiful country. And I did it. I did for maybe a couple of weeks. I started going to the cafes, reading some newspapers, chit-chatting to a lot of people. And then after some time, like, no, I can't really do that. I used to see, like, people walking out of Baker Street Station, like, people going into office and, they're in the morning and it's the rush hour. Couple of weeks, let's figure out what I can do now. And then again, CGI came to my rescue. Like, I had started planning for sitting for the examinations about a year before making the move here. And I started, like, preparing for the examinations, and it slowly, like, followed the right trajectory for me. The moment I landed here, after that couple of weeks, 3 weeks in, and I'm like, okay. And it was November-ish, like, people were switching off. It's going to be Christmas soon, so it's holiday. But I tried, like, I was like, let me attend some event. And there was this one event in CGI happening right before Christmas. And I was like, okay, I'll attend. And I went there.
Yeah.
The speakers were there. I was very, very motivated to ask for jobs and very open that this is what I have done. A lot of recruiters, they told me like, you'll have to start from scratch. I'm like, I wouldn't call it demeaning, but I said that I'm happy to start
Wasn't your plan.
from scratch, but why? I need to have a reason, why to start from scratch, because governance is governance. All the organizations across the world, they're just trying to do the right thing. Exactly. And if you have an idea, what is right in one part of the world, you can't say that is not right in the other part of the world when it comes to law or, legal regulations and everything. So I understand that the social fabric of countries is different, but still I think the law, the regulations and Companies Act is thoroughly the same. You want similar practices in boardrooms across the world. So for me, it was I've done annual reports, I've done this, and I have things to showcase that this is all that I've done. Why not? I was able to manage conversations with a couple of people at that event. And believe me or not, after that event, I met that one of the speakers again in a week's time, and I had a job offer. So
I'm guessing at that event, the networking have a clear goal in mind.
Goal. Yeah. Absolutely. What you want, and be willing to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Fantastic.
Sometimes, you can really go in, you can be in the best place in the world. But if you're not able to articulate what you want, if you're not clear on your goal, if you don't have the courage to ask for it.
And you were clear about who you are, what you've done, the experience you brought to the table, despite accepting that you might have to start from scratch, but you wanted to challenge that.
Absolutely. I was very confident about what I can bring to the table, and I don't want to be self-patronizing here, but I really did make an effort that I'm not submitting you a resume right now, but I am my walking resume. I can tell you what all I have done, and I'm happy to go on and on about it until, even if you ask me some deeper questions, I'm sure I'll be able to answer that. So interview me right now. I'm ready. That was the kind of the push that I had in myself, that I need to do it. Networking again. I can't forget that event. And why would I not recommend anybody else? Because that has worked for me. But again, there was a considerable effort I put in that, go out, go put yourself out there, meet people, talk to them, ask them, and be clear about what you want.
Yeah. But it just really goes to show here that networking isn't about collecting business cards, but there's also an element of also believing in yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right here. It's not about just collecting business cards, but it's more about establishing those relationships and, understanding what you want from which relationship.
I would say what is also interesting though is after, your networks opened doors for you, what happened after you walked through them is equally interesting. Your career has, of course, taken you over to different organizations and jurisdictions. Looking back, which transition would you say challenged you the most?
So I'll take you back to my journey first, back in India, because I think, my international governance journey really started in India when I started learning the lessons in different organizations. And those were the building blocks which made me ready for a future, I would say. My major transition happened when I moved from Calcutta, when I left my home and moved to New Delhi for the EDF Energies and Total Air Venture. And since that was a company which was run by European people, a lot of French expats were there in New Delhi, based in New Delhi. It was a massive learning for me. It was an Indian office. Of course, 90% of Indians working there, but 10% of people who were expats from Europe, they were there, the CEO, the CFO, etc. I had a massive learning from them, because not once they were trying to replicate their culture or their values in the organization. What they were trying to showcase was how adaptive they were, how welcomed we were made to feel. Like, it was their office, it was a branch of their office and everything. But of course, the people running the organization were Indian. So I think that adaptability that they were showing me at that age, like, they were senior leaders and still very adaptive, very flexible, very, very much trying to adapt to the culture and understanding what we need, how we come from or where we come from, our point of views, and, also trying to understand that how would we take a certain announcement or a certain decision. Like, it was always like a very, 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 very well thought conversation with them. So I think that is, and the authenticity, they didn't lose themselves to say that they lost their culture. They used to do everything that they would probably have done in Europe. So they were that, but they wouldn't really make us do anything which is sort of like, culturally contradicting or something. And they used to participate in our things as much, like a Diwali or a Holi and everything. They used to like be very full-fledgedly involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
From that, I think I learned that how important it is to be adaptive when you go to a new place. Inclusion doesn't really start from the point that I need to be included. Inclusion is the idea that how everyone is included, right? I mean, I need to make sure that you are also feeling included in what I am doing, not just one way around. So when I moved to the UK, there were challenges. Like, there were people who did call me out for my accent. They said, "Oh, you don't talk like us." So it's we have difficulty in understanding. I'm like, I am speaking a language that is called English. Accent can be different, has to be different, because I don't belong here. I don't belong to this country. When I say I don't belong, is basically I'm not born and brought up in this country. So when you come to my place, probably the language or the accent there will be much different to what you are used to. Yeah. So I'm making an effort to come to a middle ground. I would expect others also to do that. So that was sort of like, something that I did realize that, okay, there is an element of respect which you have to ask for yourself.
Yeah.
But not losing respect for the other person. So I very timidly, I accepted it. And I said that, okay, I'll try and do my best, to maybe try and mold a little bit of my accent, which can suit you. But I don't think I can do that, because that's going to make me lose my identity. I'm not here to become you. I would rather become one of you, which is, with that diverse perspective, but not completely lose myself. And I can't do that. As simple as that. I mean, accent shouldn't be something which you make it was surprising. To be honest, it was surprising for me. I wasn't expecting. I had read these things in books and everything that, these things exist and, you face such challenges. But experiencing firsthand was a very, very, eye-opening experience for me. And he was a very young chap. Maybe just out of college. And that just struck me that, okay, maybe the perspective is a little different as he dives deeper into the corporate world, into the realities of life. He will learn. So I don't need to make a big thing out of it. But again, that was an experience. That was a challenge which I had to overcome.
Yeah, that's a strong point that I think a lot of people can resonate with. And with staying in the topic or the theme of starting in a new place, usually when you start in a new organization, a new country, a new, jurisdiction, sometimes being new gives you a fresh perspective, a new lens to see things through. But on the other front, the question would be, what have you found remain consistent about good governance, despite changing and seeing new lenses? What experiences have you taken from a different country, a different company, that you go to a new place, you say, actually, this is universally consistent?
That simply comes down to your knowledge, your technical knowledge of the subject. I would say if you really know your job, it's very difficult for anyone to take that away from you. If you know what to do, how to do it, you are the best person in the room to deliver that. And I think that's one of the key things which doesn't change wherever you go in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are not strong on your technicals and you're trying to convey something different, I think that's going to land you in trouble, because you lose. We are in a profession which gains and loses. I mean, not gains, I would say loses credibility really quickly, but it takes a really long time to build that credibility. So I think we have to be very careful when we are, in different situations or different companies or whatever the situation is. I think your technical knowledge of the subject, and also to keep yourself relevant, with the new regulations and everything coming in, because you are one of the most trusted persons in that boardroom, which people are looking up to. So I think you really need to deliver that consistently. So that is just non-negotiable, I would say.
Yeah, and I like the point that you mentioned about it taking a while to build that credibility, build that trust, but it is quite fragile, and you have to constantly work to build and work to maintain it, to be that trusted advisor. Now, on the theme of being a strategic advisor now, and after you have gained that trust, do you think organizations fully understand, or how do you think a CoSec can help create that understanding of what we do in terms of being a trusted strategic advisors and the risk? How can a CoSec cement their position or cement that trust that we just spoke on? What are the tips you can give our listeners to build that trust?
Yep, absolutely. I think, again, I'll go back, keep your technicals very strong. That's one key thing which you cannot, which you just have to do it, I would say, and building relationships, building the tactful relationships, developing good synergies and lines of communication with the stakeholders. That is very important. When you go in an organization as a strategic advisor, there are lots of people who are looking up to you. There are people who are, the way you articulate something. Your opinion does matter, but I think listening is very important. You have to listen very strategically. And a strategic advisor, you are not meant to be biased in that boardroom. You know that, okay, in your head, you know that this is the right thing to do, and maybe they are doing the wrong thing. You have to find that fine balance of explaining that to them, because the people sitting in the room are highly experienced people. They are certainly the best in their league, and that's why they have been put together. But, you just need to find ways of navigating them through the challenges without voicing this is right, this is wrong. As I mentioned, I love black and white, but then governance actually, introduced me to the 100 shades of gray, I would say, that this is what gray means, and this is the spectrum, where you can go into. And one of the most beautiful things of the corporate governance code here in the UK is the comply and explain part. There are countries where you simply have to comply to a certain thing, and then otherwise you have penal tragedies and everything. You have absolutely very stricter regulations and everything. There's simply there's no way out of that. But over here, the flexibility that we have to comply or explain, the ability to narrate your side, I think that's really amazing. That's one of the key things for the thriving organizations. So you either make it, you either just tell them that you have done it, or you haven't done it. What's the next best thing that you have done, or what your trajectory is in explaining that regulation. So I think that is really important. So another angle which I would say that a strategic advisor can always explore is that, that this beautiful thing that we have, comply or explain, that's how you need to just go into a boardroom and explain it to them. So you just don't have to be right or wrong. There is a middle ground where you can bring them slowly. And that's part of our skill set. I think that has to be part of our skill set.
You've mentioned something that I absolutely love. You mentioned the importance of building relationships throughout your career, but also as a strategic advisor. For somebody who is starting out in their career, what would that look like in practice when they join a new organization? So I think of it as, the first 100 days.
I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, the one that you have raised, like the first 100 days are actually a very defining part in your organizational journey. And it's not even it's a period where you judge others and they judge you. So it's kind of very, very mutually important period. I think the first 100 days, as I mentioned, the relationship building aspects, asking questions. Sometimes we feel that we go in and we got to make an impression. Let me not ask anything. Let me just try to do it on my own, find it. People love other people who ask questions. So I think when you put them in a position of power, let's say, that I'm asking you because I look up to you, that does have a very positive effect on the relationship. And once you start learning, and it's always useful, there is AI, there is everything is there, but the human element is so wonderful, right? If somebody is coming to me for asking me something, immediately I'll just feel I feel empowered, I'll feel valuable. So I think that is very important. So in the first 100 days, I would say ask questions about everything from admin to subject matter expertise, questions, technical questions, IT questions. Yes, don't ask a repetitive question, don't ask the same question every day, which might land you in trouble. But ask different questions, I think, and try and get to know the people, not just their professional side, but also their personal side. I mean, not to be nagging, I want to know everything about you, but it's more try and participate in different conversations, which is always helpful. You create that bond, and the first people you really come in and make a bond with in an organization generally is your people, and you just get along with them and makes your journey easier. If not easier, smoother at least. You face problems, but you're able to get through it. To approach. You build your own network inside. I mean, you create your red buttons as well, when to press them, and you've got a rant or you want to vent out something. You can just simply go to that, build that network. It's very important.
Yeah. Earlier on as well, you spoke about the experience you had where somebody criticized your accent. Has that experience influenced the kind of leader you are today, or how you create inclusive environments for others?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the lessons. As I mentioned, the Europeans, they taught me how they were being so adaptable. I mean, you can't have a high degree of fluency in every language, right? Yeah. There are 1,000+ languages probably spoken in India. And in different regions, I don't know. I just know maybe 4 languages in the world. So there are languages which I simply don't know, and even if I try to learn tomorrow, I'll be speaking them very, in a broken way. So that respect element, it really pulled a trigger in me that this is something that I have faced. I will try my best to ensure that the other person doesn't have to face this, at least from me. And if every person starts doing that, that's how you slowly build a culture. How it happens. And that was a very breaking point for me as well. Starting in a new country, in your first job, and you get something like that as a feedback. Again, women in general are very fragile, I would say, when it comes to your how do I say, the walls that we create. We are generally very fragile in our mindset, always thinking about how we are performing, or the imposter syndrome and everything, all of those things that play in your mind. And I was doing very good in India. I had reached a middle management position where I could see myself that, okay, this is it, 5 years, 7 years down the line from here, you've kind of made a successful career and kind of loving your job. But then suddenly everything changes. and you somehow just felt like, I have to start everything new. I have to build a new network and everything. And then you're starting a new family life as well. So it's kind of like, a lot of things playing around. And then comes this little thing like, your accent is very, I was like, as if I had less things to think of, that there is one more addition. So it kind of like, it definitely stops you for a moment.
Yeah.
But it completely depends on you how you take that moment. You take that moment as a self-reflection. If that was really a feedback which I thought would help me in my career, I would have taken that. But I didn't really find it helpful in any which ways. It was like, that's just somebody made a passing comment. Let that be. It impacts. Again, you have to be very strong to navigate through that impact.
I think it's also important to emphasize that if things can't be changed about people, then there's absolutely no reason to say them, especially if they're not constructive. So, or rather, there's no need to say them. Period.
Yep, absolutely. You got to choose your battles, right?
Yeah. No, as we start to come close to the wrap up of this really, really interesting conversation around, governance across borders, good governance across borders. I wanted to zoom in as well on that thought about your style of leadership and how empathy and resilience plays a role with how you and your team functions and operate. I also, learned something from what you said regarding the importance of relationship creation and management firsthand. I've had relationship from back in Nigeria from about 12, 13 years ago. And currently, that individual is a very, very close governance, a friend of mine within corporate governance. We never knew we would find ourselves working in corporate governance all those years in a totally different country. But what have you found in your journey around empathy and resilience, and what role does that have with other governance professionals that are making transitions, be it from a different country to a new country, different jurisdiction to a new jurisdiction, or even just a different company to another? How have you demonstrated that empathy across your team?
Absolutely. I think, again, like, in India, when I started growing in my role, like, I had a couple of reportees to everyone, and I'm still in touch with them. Which is like, whenever there is some event in their life, they send me a post or something and sometimes they also thank me. I used to give small tuitions or classes when I was in college. I used to give classes to some very young kids, and they still wish me a happy Teachers Day on every 5th of September. And which is sort of like, you feel happy about it. I don't feel very proud about it, what I did, but I do feel happy about it. And even the relations that I've created here, worked in a couple of different organizations, the team members that I connected to, they've been through, some of my very important life events, like, having a child, or, that pregnancy period, post-pregnancy period. And I've seen, how they helped me in a lot of ways. So I do consider that as a compliment to how I have been with them. So I definitely feel that I have carried that, empathy and, that relationship building aspect, or the cultural aspect with me. And I do feel that I'm doing my bit, for the team, for the organization, and they do see that. That's why I always say, there's this one very famous quote, which a lot of people have quoted, but it's very close to my heart, is, when you have to go fast, go alone, but if you have to go far, you have to go together. And to go together, to bring those people together, you have to understand them. You have to give them the right, the right characteristics. You have to show them the right characteristics so that they walk with you. And on the same note, when you look at governance across borders, biggest lesson from my journey has been that good governance is universal. It's just that how you deliver it is local. So across jurisdictions, you'll find everybody across countries needs good governance. It's just the delivery which is imbibed or, heavily imbibed in local culture and the local ways of working. And the best people are not always who know most of the regulations. I think they're the people who bridge perspectives, who understand the context and help organizations make better decisions.
Yeah, I think that is the perfect place to leave it. Today's conversation has reminded us that whilst technical excellence matters, your career is shaped by the people who challenge us, support us, and open doors for us. I mean, I would summarize it to say that there's no such thing as a self-made governance professional. Would you agree?
Absolutely, Nayo. Yes, it's about the team around you and the journey and the experiences you collect along the journey.
Indy, thank you so much for joining us on CoSeCity podcast and for sharing your experiences so openly. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Nina. Thank you, Kako. Really intriguing conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm so sad. We should have booked in a 2-hour slot or something.
Maybe another one. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Indy. And to our listeners, please share the link, subscribe, and be part of the conversation. Speak soon.